What's up, guys? I can't go live on here because I don't meet the requirements and everything. See, I got a Bullet Club t-shirt on, by the way, but I'm going to try to make this video real quick, real sweet, talk about a little bit about the heavyweight division and everything. If you haven't, this is my YouTube channel, Drew Evo. I'm Drew Evo, by the way, co-host of the Shoe Shine podcast, which is on every Monday night on Periscope and on YouTube at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We're also on the Leaving the Ring Network, so make sure you go follow Shoe Shine Boxing and hit that sub button on it. Subscribe to that channel. It'll help you be helping me, and also helping that channel get to 100 subscribers. Also, hit the like button on this video and hit the sub button. I'm at 9 subscribers. I need to get to 100 to be able to do what I have to do on this channel. So let's talk. Let's get to the topic. Talk about the heavyweight division, the state of it, and everything. There's a lot of difference between this era of heavyweight and the last era of heavyweights, because the last era of heavyweights, it was not really a small gap between the fighters. There was a big gap. It was a dominant era for two fighters, the Klitschko brothers, Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko. But when that era first started, and people may have forgotten this, when Vitaly didn't make a comeback yet, Vladimir had 2 titles, but there was also 2 other champions in that division, which was actually 3. Sultan and Bragimov, Olga Maskayev, and Alexander Povetkin. So when Vladimir won a couple of those titles, and Vitaly made a comeback and won the WBC title, which I believe was held by Samuel Peter at the time when he won the title, they became more dominant. And then after that, Russian Giant became the WBA heavyweight champion, Nikolai Vareri. He was a 7-foot, 350-pound giant. It was a dream matchup back in that era to have one of the Klitschko's fight Nikolai Vareri, but unfortunately that fight never happened. Nikolai built his career off fighting nobodies, and until he fought Ruslan Sagaev, and Ruslan Sagaev got a decision over him and won the WBA title. There was supposed to be a rematch. Ruslan Sagaev fight never happened. It was delayed. It was like different reason why the fight was delayed. So they decided to let Vareri fight for the title against a nobody, and Nikolai Vareri became a 2-time heavyweight champion and regained the WBA heavyweight title. So that fight was on the table. He was 49. He was 50-1, and the dream fight was one of the biggest dream fights, besides having the Klitschkos fight each other in that era, was having Nikolai Vareri fight either Klitschko or both Klitschkos to see, but that fight never happened. Nikolai went to fight Evander Holyfield, an Asian Evander Holyfield that wasn't really a threat in this division anymore. People were wondering when he was going to retire because he was getting hurt too much. He was just taking beatings, and he wasn't really a challenge. But the old Evander came out that night and lost and got robbed, because I believe a lot of people believe Evander Holyfield, including me, Evander Holyfield won that fight, and he was robbed. And it was probably robbed because the fight was in Russia. So then David Haye was the undisputed cruiserweight champion. He decided to make a move to heavyweight fighting, and then got a title fight with Nikolai Vareri, it was possibly the biggest difference in height and weight in boxing history. It was a real David and Goliath fight. And David Haye dominated the fight. David Haye boxed him all night. David Haye in the 12th round almost knocked the Russian giant out. He hurt him, had him wobbling. His knees were buckling. He stayed up, and then David Haye got the upset. One of the biggest upsets in the heavyweight division. So Nikolai was never the same after that. Nikolai Vareri retired because supposedly it was conditions that forced him to retire. And I think it was like both knees were out or had to do with. He had knee injuries that forced him to retire early. And it was probably like medical conditions that big men normally get that are over 7 foot. So his career was over. It was a mediocre career at the end, and it was a shame that we didn't see the fight with him fighting Ivo Klitschko. But other than that, the Klitschkos continue to dominate that era. And you could they fought top 10 heavyweights. It's just the gap between the Klitschkos and these other top 10 heavyweights were too big of a gap. These guys had no business. A lot of these guys really had no business being in the ring with Ivo Klitschko. Like the last time I think Vitaly Klitschko lost a fight, it was against he got injured, and it was against Chris Berg, and he was a guy. He moved up from light heavyweight, cruiserweight, heavyweight. You know, he was a real undersized heavyweight. He was a big underdog. He won the fight, and then he got knocked out by Vladimir Klitschko. So, like, it was really a big gap, because as soon as the Klitschkos took the belts in the heavyweight division, nobody was getting these belts. Like, heavyweight boxing was really dead at this time. And a lot of people said heavyweight boxing is dead because it's dominated by Eastern Europeans, and there's two fighters that are dominant, and there's a big gap of skill and everything between these two fighters and these other heavyweights. And these two fighters are brothers, and we know that we're never going to see a brother versus brother fight. And everybody wanted to see. They were trying to debate who will win a fight between Vladimir Klitschko and Vitaly Klitschko. And a lot of people think that Vitaly Klitschko would beat his younger brother. And I agree. I really think so too. I think Vitaly neutralized the jab a lot better than his brother did. And it was a lot of power behind that jab. Why Vladimir, he got lazy with it. And like, that's all he really would do during fights. Like, Vitaly later on in his run became more of a born fighter. Like, those fights were born because Vladimir, most of the time, will either hug you, hold you to tire you out, or jab you to death. And that's not heavyweight boxing. It's more like knocking you out. And people were wondering, when is he going to throw that hook, that overhand right? When is he going to stop jabbing the whole fucking fight? Well, Vitaly, even if he jabbed, it was going to hurt because it was a hard-ass jab. So, at the end of the day, Vitaly had the harder jab, even though Vladimir had indeed the better trainer, Manuel Stewart, and learned the Croc style. And then as soon as Manuel Stewart died, it was Jonathan Banks, Emmanuel Stewart's assistant, And Jonathan Banks was a heavyweight fighter too at the time. He's a pro. He was an active prize heavyweight fighter too, and he fought. He's known for his best fights with Seth Mayhem Mitchell, a college football player from Michigan State that came out, and everybody thought he was the next big American heavyweight that really was going to hit the scene. So now they had him billed as the next great American heavyweight because he was knocking people out and everything. But as soon as Jonathan Banks fought him, Jonathan Banks exposed him, and I believe he knocked out Seth Mitchell in the first fight. And then the second fight, Seth Mitchell avenged that loss and got a decision victory. But Chris Arreola, which is a good heavyweight contender, came and knocked out Seth Mitchell easily, and that was the last we saw of him. So, and then we had another fucking, heavy cruiserweight, Tomasz Adamek, Polish cruiserweight. He moved up to heavyweight. He was a former light heavyweight and cruiserweight champion. He moved up. They thought he was going to have success and be able to challenge one of the Klitschko's eventually, like David Haye. They thought David Haye was going to be a guy that was going to be able to beat one of the Klitschko's because of his skill and his knockout power. But when the fight was made finally with David Haye and Vladimir, it turned out to be a big disappointment. Even though at the end of the fight, David Haye almost knocked Vladimir Klitschko out. But David Haye was never really the same after that fight. Like, he made an excuse, and then it wasn't really the same. He was supposed to fight Vitaly Klitschko. That never happened. And it wound up being Tomasz Adamek fought Vitaly Klitschko and got knocked out. It was in Poland. So, that shit. So, two cruiserweight hopefuls just didn't match up well with these Klitschko's. And to be honest, in that era, I thought the closest one to that gap with the Klitschko's was David Haye. Like, I could put a word in for Fast Eddie Chambers, but the problem with Eddie Chambers was an excellent boxer. Don't get me wrong, he was an excellent boxer. He did not have the full power range of a heavyweight, but the thing I thought could have been a lot of difference if Eddie Chambers was a bigger heavyweight, was taller. I thought he was a tall heavyweight close to the Klitschko's height, or probably a little bit maybe taller than the Klitschko. He might have gave the Klitschko's a run for their money. I think he might have beat at least one of the Klitschko's. But at the end of the day, Vitaly, retired because he became Mayor Kiev, Ukraine, and became champion in Turner. Fucking Vladimir Klitschko eventually lost the heavyweight crown after a 10-year reign as heavyweight champion to the best heavyweight in the world today, Tyson Fury. So now let's get to today's heavyweight era. This is a better era. This makes heavyweight boxing back because there's not that big of a gap between these top 10 heavyweights, and there's a lot of up and coming heavyweights that are gonna give these heavyweights problems in the future. But as of right now, I believe Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight in the world. I think that when he signed on to fight Joshua in a undisputed unification belt, I think he easily beats Anthony Joshua. And when you have this list of top 10 fighters in the heavyweight division, I believe right now the third best heavyweight is Alexander Usyk. I think that Deontay Wilder, he was fully exposed. Like, don't get me wrong, Deontay Wilder has huge power, but he built his career off beating lower level B class fighters and lower. Most of the guys he fought were C level fighters and below. So to say that he's one of the best heavyweights of all time is an overstatement, in my opinion, because of that reputation. The best fighter he beat on that list is Luis Ortiz, and he's at most an upper mid-tier beef class fighter at best, and everything. So I really think Deontay would lose to Alexander Usyk. I think Joshua beats him. I think Joseph Parker could beat him. I really think Andy Ruiz could beat Deontay Wilder. I really think that Dillian Wright may, if he doesn't get caught, but I believe that there's fighters other than Fury and Joshua that can beat Wilder, and that includes Usyk and Parker and Ruiz. So there's really, I even could give Povetkin a chance to beat Deontay Wilder and everything. He's just been fully exposed, and like all this shit that came out and everything is like drama. So a lot of people have lost respect for him. I have. So, but at the end of the day, this heavyweight division is a lot better. It does not have a big gap between these fighters. I think a lot of these fights in the heavyweight division that can be made are good fights. So at the end, this is a better era than the Klitschko era. I thought the Klitschko era out of all the heavyweight boxing eras were the weakest. It was the weakest era. Like, you can name any of these boxers from the Tyson, from like the era with Tyson, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, George Foreman, all of them, Ali and all of them, that can beat any of these guys in the Klitschko era. Could possibly beat the Klitschkos too. And so at the end of the day, it's just not that big of a skill gap. But the era that had the biggest skill gap was the 2011 one with the Klitschko era. And it was heavyweight. It was the dark. I consider that the dark times of heavyweight boxing, because there was really no like prime time or like big threat to the Klitschkos, to the title reign. And like it just was a boring era. And that was when like the 147, the middleweights was, and the Super 6 or the Super middleweight was there. And that was there were the divisions to look at. So at the end of the day, there's really a lot we can talk about with this heavyweight division today. So I'm going to include this video. I don't want to, and everything. So I thank everybody that's going to view this video. Give this video a like. Comment on it if you like to. This is like a test, like a mother test video. But I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers. I'm trying to get myself a PC to be able to do more YouTube. My YouTube channel I want to have on it is reviews on animes, like comics or something, video games, some video game gameplay on this channel, unboxing of items that I get, and sports like football, basketball, all that, and boxing too. So guys, if you really want to see this type of content, just hit subscribe. Just like this video, subscribe to the channel, support me. Also support my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/DrewEvo85 that I go live on and stream. So guys, support your boy. Follow me on Twitter at DrewEvo. And everybody, have a nice day. Peace.